Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Summers, and welcome to the audio edition of Mind, Body, Soul, a show about your mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. I have with me another interesting guest today, and he happens to be a very good friend of mine, realtor Tom Clift. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Hi Gary, how are you doing, man?
Good, man, good. Tom, let's get right into this because I know people, are selling houses, buying houses, and there's not really a lot of information out there. So I wanted to bring you in to kind of set the record straight, to kind of dispel some myths, to just talk about this aspect of everyone's life. So, first question right off the bat: how do you choose a realtor?
The realtor that you choose should be, first of all, a good fit for you. I may not be a good fit for you, so you can tell by your personality profiles and so forth if you're going to be a match. But I think the most important component is that you get a sense that the person has high integrity and that the person can be trusted. They're obviously dealing with your biggest asset, and you want to have somebody that you're comfortable with and that has a high integrity. And of course, someone who's had some sales underneath the belt and know what they're actually doing. Their knowledge of real estate should be consistent with what the market is producing.
So it's not so much how many years the person has been selling houses; it's actually how productive they've been doing that.
I agree. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use an example. I had a young realtor come to me a while ago and said, "Tom, I've only been in the business 2 years, and at a listing presentation, someone asked me how long I was selling." I said, "Well, you concentrated on the wrong thing." I said, "You've sold more properties in 2 years than realtors have sold in 10 or 15. So you've got actually more experience than sometimes more senior realtors because you've sold more properties." The number of years a person's been in the business does not necessarily reflect how many properties they sold or how good they are at getting a property sold. So that's the more important key element there.
What about, and I hear you talked about this before, and many people, I guess, don't understand it or don't even ask the question when deciding on a realtor, the list to sale ratio. How important is that? Or first of all, explain what that is.
Okay, so your list to sale ratio means of all the houses that you actually list, what percentage or how many of those houses do you actually sell?
Not only you, but any realtor sells.
Any realtor.
Okay.
Yeah, list to ratio sale, it means how many houses you sell based on the number of houses that you actually list. And so, in any given year, that can change from one year to the other with any given realtor. However, there should be at least be able to sell 50 to 60, maybe even 70% of houses that you list. If they're not selling, they're probably not priced correctly in the first place.
What are some red flags for homeowners?
So you mean for somebody selling a property?
Yeah.
Well, their knowledge of the market. And the other thing is, if someone's coming in, they should be able to provide you a fairly detailed report based on your house and similar properties to see, and it's called a current market analysis, CMA for short. They definitely should have a CMA in writing for you showing comparable sales and so forth. They don't have that, and they're just doing it off the top of their head. For me, that would be a major red flag. That would be a major concern for me.
So if you came into my house and I said, "Tom, I'm interested in listing my house," and you walked around, eyeball it, and said, "Oh, I think I can get you $400,000 for that house," you're not going to just look around and quote a price. You're going to go back and do some research. And so how would you come to a value for that person's house? There's obviously more than just eyeballing the situation.
Okay, so just to clarify, there is a difference between a CMA or current market analysis and a registered appraisal done by somebody who has nothing to do with commissions or there's no ulterior motives.
And that's where you pay for that.
That's where you pay for that.
For an appraisal.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
So for me, to price your house correctly, what I look at is, okay, first of all, I'll try to find as many comparable sold properties to compare your house to. Now, I'll provide ones that are currently for sale. I'll provide ones that have an accepted offer on it, and I'll provide ones that are actually sold and completed. The sold ones are the most important component of pricing your house, because that price is an indicator based on the square footage, age of your house. If you had 10 that sold in this price range, you know that's the price range yours should be in. People can ask whatever price they like, but it's the actual price that it will sell for is the most important component of the CMA.
So, how can homeowners protect themselves?
Well, if I were selling my house and I had a realtor come in, I would have a list of questions. The more questions you ask, the more you'll realize if this person has high integrity, if this person has knowledge of the market, does this person know their stuff, do they do a current and correct market analysis for your home, how many houses they sold, what's the current interest rate, would you know what the mortgage payment would be on such and such. Ask as many questions as you can, because the more questions they can answer, you know, the more knowledgeable that realtor is and they know what they're doing.
How many people, and I don't know if you even know this answer, how many people pick the first realtor that comes by?
Unbelievably, I could give you a number, and I can't say it's 100% accurate, but I did see this statistic on the National Association of Realtors that roughly 70% of people choose the very first realtor that they meet to list their house with, which it's unbelievable to me that could happen when you risk the biggest investment you have with somebody you have not asked enough questions or have a place of comfort that you're going to deal well with this person.
So it's really about interviewing the person who's going to sell the most valuable asset that you have, isn't it?
Every time I go to a listing presentation, I treat it as a job interview. I'm going to give them the information that they need to make an informed decision and know that they're comfortable with me as being their realtor who's going to represent them well.
When you have your home listed, when should you take your home off the market or switch realtors?
Well,
I think you have to sign at least a minimum 3-month contract, do you?
To have something put on MLS, there's a minimum of 2-month listing period. However, and there's a big difference that when you decide that you want to take it off the market, there's a big difference between withdrawing it from the market and canceling the listing. When you cancel the listing, you have absolutely no obligation anymore to that realtor or that realtor company.
But that's 2 months.
Well, officially stay on MLS, you're supposed to list for a minimum of 2 months.
Okay.
So, but the other one is withdrawal. So you're not happy with a person and the realtor comes and gives you withdrawal documents. If you've actually read the document, you would understand that if you list with another realtor and the property's been withdrawn but not canceled, the other company can still collect some commission on that.
Okay.
So it's very important that you actually want to completely rid yourself of a realtor, that you actually cancel a listing, not withdraw it. Now, in all fairness, no matter who your realtor is, if you're not satisfied with their performance, it's up to you to indicate to them where you think they are falling short so they can correct it, because sometimes they assume that that you want this or that and not know it. So in all honesty, I think you do owe the realtor an explanation or ask the questions, because there may be something that could be easily adjusted and and everything works well.
Because simply a thing that asking the realtor, how are they going to market your house?
I think that's a very important question.
How are you going to, what are you going to do to make sure that I sell my house in the appropriate amount of time?
Okay, so here's a good indication to you. Okay, so the average days on market changes continuously. So although you have a minimum of 60 days that you had to be on MLS to actually list a property, if I look at the days on market and I look at the average, and the average is 87, then I'm going to ask you to a minimum 3 months listing period, because I'm not getting a fair deal on this either. I don't have enough time. If the average days in the market, let's say it's 87 days or 92 days or whatever, and we're listing for 60, it's quite possible I'm not going to sell your house, and it's going to make leave you with a bad taste in your mouth, and it's going to be upsetting to me because I know I spent money advertising and promoting your property, and all of a sudden you're just taking it out of my lap. So that's why I always say you should actually confront the realtor if you're not happy with the service, and ask the appropriate questions, and ask or direct them in which way you want the deal to go.
Okay. For sale by owner.
We call them FSBOs.
FSBOs. Pitfalls. What is the downside of selling your own home?
Well, realistically speaking, for sale by owners contribute such a small percentage of the market that statistics are not necessarily as accurate because we don't have as many figures to work with.
Sure.
But again, people, I can understand why someone would want to sell it for sale by owner. 5% is a chunk of change.
Because that's the next question.
Okay, that is a chunk of change.
Why should I give you 5% of my property value? Right?
And so therefore, what you need to know is, first of all, is your house going to be priced accurately? And because you could end up actually selling your house for less than you would have gotten, and actually end up losing more than 5% on the commission. So, that's one of the biggest pitfalls, making sure that your house is priced correctly and accurately. Number two, you have to take and look at, okay, so if a realtor who's representing a buyer does not get paid commission by his buyer, he gets his commission from the vendor of the house.
Right.
So it doesn't cost you any money to have someone working for you to purchase a property. So you got to say to yourself, who am I attracting when I private sale my own property? And you're going to have people who are investors who are looking to find that property that they can beat the person down in price, who have not skilled in negotiation, because they're looking for something cheap and they don't care what you get for it as long as they get it for what they want. So that's a big pitfall.
Right.
The decrease in price that you could potentially lose based on what you could have paid commission and got a better price, that's another strong indicator of what could be. The other thing is, unless you're really computer savvy and tech savvy, are you going to be able to promote your property? I could take your property, stick it on MLS, and hope it sells and not do anything. Or I can take your property and because I don't consider myself a lister, I actually consider myself a marketer. I market your properties, and most good realtors do. Okay, I'll get videos done, professional pictures done, make sure it's in as many locations as possible. On an average, I advertise in 14 to 15 locations. So like the possibility of my property being that I list selling is probably a lot higher than the person's going to as a FSBO, because there's such a big difference in the quality that I can provide compared to someone selling on their own.
And of course, then you got the other side of it. If you're not a marketing person, and you got people coming into your house and greeting people, and you've got to be there all the time to show the house and stuff like that, can be problematic too, right?
And I can tell you right now, an issue that many people are not aware of, oftentimes viewings are canceled. Now, if you're selling privately, the number of first of all, you don't even know who's coming into your house because they haven't been screened in any way.
Right.
You have no idea. I said, anybody off the street can say, I'm going to case that house out now, and I'll just ask for a viewing. So that's a possibility as well, something to be concerned about. And they don't know what the protocols are, so they may make an appointment, forget about the appointment, not bother to call you. There are all kinds of headaches involved with for sale owners. Now, that's not to say that some people are quite good at it. Not everyone is born a policeman, not everyone's born a doctor, not everyone's born a salesperson. But there are some people who have good sales skills that could possibly sell on their own, so I wouldn't discourage them from doing it. I'm just telling you that on the average, though, the person who sells privately oft does not get the quality that they would, or the price that they would have preferred to have.
So here's the question, Tom, and I'm sure people ask you all the time.
Okay.
And I said it earlier. Why would I give you 5% of my property value?
Okay, so I'm going to explain this.
Because
I'm going to do a little bit of an analogy for you.
On a $400,000 home, that's $20,000.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of an analogy for you. Okay, so the average realtor, on an average, somewhere in the 7 to 8, 9 houses a year sale. Okay, that's what they sell. And the average commission, if you look at St. John's, the average commission, so the average house price right now is around $295 to $300. So let's say $300 just to make it easy to work with, which would be a $15,000 commission. So basically, on that $15,000 commission, half of it goes to the listing company and half goes to the selling company. So I never wanted to discourage any realtor from showing your house. So I always make sure that I pay out 2.5%, because there's so much competition out there. If I offered a less commission, I'm not saying realtors won't show your house. I'm saying it won't be as much as an encouragement if the amount that they would normally get is not provided. So I want to make sure I'm actually looking out for your best interest by making sure they get 2.5%. So let's look at the 2.5% that I get to keep. I don't actually get to keep it. And that 2.5%, if you want to look at most models for real estate companies, the companies have to get something from each realtor. So on an average, it's roughly 30%. So out of that 2.5%, 30% of that, or actually you're down to about 1.25% now, is what the realtor gets. So that's not a whole lot of money. You said like a $400,000 house. Well, a realtor might get 6 to 7 out of that based on a $400,000 house. So they're not getting the $20,000.
Right. So
you're paying for both sides of the deal here. And so that's a very important, crucial component that people just do not understand. Now, the question I have is, when I go to a listing presentation and someone says to me, Tom, I had someone else come in and they're going to do it for 4%. My biggest question is this. Number one, if they can do it for 4%, or say they do it for 4%, and they drop their commission just like that, now think about it. Is this the person that you want to be in charge of negotiating the price on your house? They can't even deal with their own commission. How are they going to deal with the price on your home? So I have a big problem with that. The other part, as I explained, 2.5% goes to one side. Well, part of that goes to the company, and there is marketing involved. Are you going to have, who's going to pay for the videos, the pictures, all the places where it's posted on the internet, all the advertising? Who's paying for that if they take 4%? Because there's nothing left. They're only going to have a 0.5%. They got to feed their family, they got a mortgage to pay, they got a car payment to make. So I really question, how can someone provide, if someone's willing to drop it that quickly, it almost feels like a sign of desperation to me, whereas I know I'm going to provide quality service and you're going to get your money's worth. So I have no problem with commission of 5% because I know it's based on a fair assumption of what costs are involved. You know, people say about 5%. Now, I'm sure most realtors would probably know what was their average sale price in comparison to other people's average sale price, because there is a difference. So, you know, I'm not going to get into specific numbers here, but if I, for example, on an average could net you $4,000 more than another agent, well, the 5% commission is almost pretty well wiped out, because I've gotten you more money for your house than you would have with someone who maybe, you know, doesn't know what they're doing as well.
Good point. You talk about the 3 different types of pricing a house.
Well, this is something I sort of kind of made up.
But
it is accurate. But it is accurate.
It makes a lot of sense. So just go through those.
Okay, I call it a sum, S-O-M-E, sum day price. You know, when you go into a person's house, they have a figure in mind, and they're not in the business, so oftentimes that price may not be accurate. So I go in and I'm going to use a round figure. Let's say I estimate a house to be worth $400,000. And they say, oh my God, no, I want $450,000. Okay, well, but I just showed you the market analysis, and there's no indication there that that house should be worth $450,000. So why do you think it should be worth $450,000? And they say, well, I got this or I got that. It doesn't add up to $50,000. So I call that a someday price. They say, okay, well, that price you will get someday.
Not today.
Not today, or not this year, or maybe not even next year. So if you want to wait, you go ahead. I'm not interested, because some people say, I want to try the market. I always say, I'm not trying the market. I know the market. You want to try the market, find another realtor. Then you have what I call your retail price. So your retail price is your normal price. So let's say you had 10, 1,500 square foot bungalows, all in the same area, and they're all listed around the same price. Yeah, they're going to sell, but the house that has probably a few extra features more will sell probably quicker. So retail price is basically, where the price, around where that price should be, and depending on how long you want to wait, it probably should sell somewhere in that range within a reasonable amount of time. When I say, within, say, 2 to 6 months. And then I have what you call like your sale price. And, it doesn't have to be drastically lower than your retail price. But if you have 10 houses, and I can tell you if there are 10 houses in an area that match a buyer's criteria, they're going to want to see all 10. So if all 10, or let's say 9 out of 10 are priced at 300,000 and you list at 295, what do you think the probabilities are that your house is going to be one of the very first ones sold? Most likely yours is going to be the very first one to sell, because all things being equal, why would someone pay more? And so I call that a sale price. And oftentimes, if someone, I'll ask them, okay, how much of a hurry are you to sell your house? And if there are some circumstances in which, the urgency is a bit stronger, I say, well, let's price it ahead of the market. And that's the sale price.
Okay, so when you walk into a house, just go through how you come up with a selling price for that house.
Okay, so I have people who ask me on a regular basis, especially someone who knows me well, how much do you think my house is worth? And I said, I'm not doing that. We said, no, Tom, I'm not going to hold you. No, I'm not doing that. I want to make sure that if I give you a price that's accurate, even if you have no intention of selling it, you're still going to come back on me down the road and say, but you told me this. I said, I don't do that. So I will do a very thorough market analysis of your house. I'll find as many houses as I can find that sold that were similar. I will break it down per square foot to see how much, because I could compare a 3,600 square foot two-story house and a 3,400 square foot two-story house. 200 square feet is a significant amount of space. So, I always break it down per square foot as well and multiply it by the square footage to see if that works out. And then I'll go by percentages. Okay, the price increased by this much from last year, or it decreased by this much. So I'll try to work it out all three ways. And if all three are fairly close to each other, I know I'm pretty accurate.
So you present that to the customer. I absolutely have never gone into a house, walked around and say, I think you're going to get this. And actually, I never asked the homeowner how much they expect until after I give them my price, because I don't want that in the back of my head. I want to make sure that my price is accurate based on objective thinking, not trying to rationalize based on your emotions what you think the house should be. And let's face facts, we're all human. If someone tells me they expect such and such a price, in the back of my head I'm looking at that, and that's going to sway my opinion. Sure. And it won't be objective. Naturally it would. So not necessarily a first time home purchaser, but first home they want to buy.
Yeah.
What are the steps?
Well, first of all, like if someone wants to see all right, let's just pretend you just call me up. I don't know who you are, and you want to see one of my listings. I will show you that house. However, when you arrive, I will be asking you questions as to whether or not I'm going to continue showing you houses. And the first crucial step is that I will ask, first of all, I want to make sure you're not working with another realtor, because I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I'm totally ethical that way.
Right.
But the most important question I want to know is, have you been to the bank for a pre-approval? Now, a pre-approval is not a guarantee that you can afford to buy the house, but a pre-approval is a level of comfort where you've gone and spoke to a bank. They've told you, based on the information that you gave them. If you give them inaccurate information, it may not be correct, but if you give them accurate information based on that, they will give you a price range as to what you can afford to buy. So if you don't want to do that, then I'm not going to work with you. That's crucial. Number two, I want to sit down. One of the things I explain in great detail, especially for purchasers, is the home inspection process. A lot of people misunderstand home inspections and what's included in it. So I spend 20 minutes to a half an hour going over every detail of what is expected in a home inspection and what things are not covered in a home inspection. Because the person looks at a house, they make an offer, and the realtor didn't explain a home inspection. All of a sudden 15 items come up and they want all of them fixed. They only correct deficiencies. And so therefore I want to make sure that they understand what is a deficiency and what isn't, what they're allowed to ask for and what they're not allowed to ask for, so we don't have a big kerfuffle at the end and fighting over what's in the home inspection. So I want to make sure that's done correctly. The other thing I want to make sure is that they know, or I know actually, what way they prefer to be communicated with. Some people like texting, some people like email, some people like the phone call. So I will tailor it to whatever suits you best.
Well, their comfort zone.
You got whatever they're comfortable with. You know,
Yeah.
like with younger buyers, everything's done by text. With older buyers, they like the phone call. So I will ask what's the best way to communicate, and then your realtor should set you up on a system so that you're getting listings coming to you based on the criteria you gave the agent. And if you don't give them the correct criteria, well, you know, like you can look at all kinds of properties that don't actually match. And I will, after 3 or 4 viewings, if you ask to see a specific house and I look at this house and it doesn't match the criteria you gave me, rather than just set up the appointment, I'll call you and say, okay, well, did you consider this, this, and this? And said, have you done a drive-by? Because oftentimes they think they want to see a house, and they get there, as soon as they get there, they say, oh, I don't like this area. Well, like, you know, I want to know that kind of stuff so I can help you better,
Right.
and so that we don't waste your time. So, you know, those are some of the items that I would want to know and have you a comfort level with when you go to purchase a house.
First,
And I explained to them about, you know, I also give them names for lawyers, bankers, home inspectors. Now they can choose who they like, but they often ask me, who would you get for a home inspector? Who would you use as a banker? Who, you know? So I always have a bunch of people that I can refer, and I'm sure every realtor has good people they can refer as well.
we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but selling your home, the first couple of steps, and you had mentioned earlier that 70-80% of people pick the first realtor that they look up in the yellow pages, call someone and do it. So a couple of the very first steps for someone who's selling a home, what advice would you give to those people?
The first thing and the most crucial thing is that the house is priced correctly. That is absolutely crucial. And you need to be able to work with the person that you're working with. You need to be, there's got to be a level of a trust and comfort with that person.
So like you said, you want to, like you said earlier, you look at everyone as a job interview to see if the person is comfortable with you selling their home.
Yes, and you know something? It's the other way around as well. I mean, I don't do this often, but in 17 years I've been in the business, I can think of at least maybe 5 or 6 times that I would not take a listing because when I asked certain questions, I felt they were avoiding and weren't giving me full information or disclosure about the property, and so I didn't feel a level of trust for me.
Sure.
My reputation to protect as well. And it doesn't happen very often, but it has happened half a dozen times that I actually turned down a client.
Well, you know, if you're going to go in and you want to sell someone's property, you'd like to know if the basement floods every 2 or 3 weeks, right?
Exactly. I've had no problem with any issue they tell me, as long as it's
Absolutely.
disclosed.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I can sell anything as long as the person who's buying it knows what they're getting. You know.
Tom, Keller Williams, and I know you don't want this to be personal, but you're the majority owner of Keller Williams, and why would someone choose Keller Williams over somebody else? What are the advantages of going to Keller Williams?
Well, there's lots of really good, reputable real estate companies. You know, lots of them. But Keller Williams is a little bit of a different model than others. But the biggest component that would be, you know, an advantage to a buyer or a seller. Well, first of all, Keller Williams is the largest real estate company in the world by agent count, far larger than anyone comes even close to. So therefore, and we sell in over 38 countries. So if you're selling a property, that agent has access to locations that, you know, from out-of-town buyers that are probably exceed than any other company may have. So because it does go on an international website, it goes on the national website, goes on your website, your company website, and so forth, the exposure that it may provide for you is truly great. Most people, you know, a couple of years ago didn't even know who Keller Williams was. Keller Williams originated in the States, but it's spread out and it's growing by leaps and bounds. But the other big thing is as well, Keller Williams is also recognized as, Keller Williams International as the best training company in the world. I think it was 4 occasions that they were named that, and they're not talking about real estate. They're talking about all companies. They were named the best trainers. So, I can say to you that the agents that go through my office, they get excessive training. And so that, they know or should know everything that there is to do with a house. And what they don't know, they have a large resource to fall back on as well.
Tom, Why Tom Clift? I know why, because we've known each other. You don't have to convince me, but someone who doesn't know who Tom Clift is, why?
Well, you know, there are lots of great agents out there. There are. But like, you know, the 80-20 rule or Pareto principle, like, you know, there's always the top 20%, the 80%, and so forth like that. I've always been in the top 20%. And actually much harder than that as well. But, you know, I'm not going to say I'm any better than any other realtor, but I will say that if you know, I had several agents say to me so often that it finally stuck in my head. So I really trust you. Like, you know, I always feel like I can trust you. You know, so like integrity is extremely important to me. You can lose a commission, but you don't want to lose your reputation. I actually study the market regularly. I'm pretty well up on any statistic you want to ask, market values, anything at all. I'm well educated about that. And, you know, I was a school principal, so I look at it this way, if I could treat your most precious commodity to the best of my ability for 30 years, your second most precious commodity, your house, comes a lot easier than your kid did. So, you know, I just take a true interest in the person that I'm dealing with. I want to make sure that, you know, that I'm serving them to the best of my ability with the least amount of stress and get the most amount of money I can for them. I did a lot of work on personality profiles, and so within 10 to 15 minutes of meeting someone, I can pretty well tell what profile they are, and so then I cater my selling strategy to the type of person that you are, not necessarily what I am, so that it makes it easier for you.
A real estate as a career, and I think you told me you've done 300 interviews.
I've done a lot. I've done a lot of interviews.
Someone who walks in through your door and says, "I'd like to become a member of the Keller Williams real estate team." What's some advice you can have for an up and coming person who wants to sell real estate for a living?
Okay, so Gary, I'm going to give you a summary of, you know, people I've interviewed, what seems to be some of the main components and things that they need to know. Oftentimes when I ask, the very first question I'll ask anybody is say, why real estate? So why are you interested in real estate as opposed to something else? And, you know, frequently the answer I get back is because of the money. And I know there's this, you know, feeling in the general public that realtors make a fortune. And yeah, some do. There is a very small percentage that actually do extremely well. But for the most part, you know, your average realtor, when I say your average realtor, like, you know, if you took 100 realtors, 80%, 70% of those fall within a category range of salaries that's different than the other 20%. So I want to make sure that the person who comes into the business understands that a lot of people don't actually last long in the business because it's not what they expected.
What's the number you gave me?
Well, the last time I checked, it was roughly 80% of realtors don't make it past the second year. And so I'm intent, when someone comes and wants to join, I'm very intent on them knowing all the information they need to know, even the stuff that you don't want to talk about. You know, salaries, costs to you, advertising costs, you know, how long you last in the business. I don't want to give them a diet of total negativity, but I do want them to make sure that they're completely aware that your performance in real estate is based on only one thing, and that's your ambition for it. You know, not everybody's cut out to be a salesperson, not everyone's cut out to be a realtor, and I just want to make sure that when someone comes and talks to me, that their chances of success are much higher than if I hadn't told them the information that they needed to know. And when someone comes to Keller Williams, I can't teach integrity and I can't teach goodwill, but everything else I can teach them. So I'm concentrating. I'll ask specific types of questions that I'm delving into where their head is and if they're of high integrity. And if I think that's the case with Keller Williams, the training is so extensive that even an average realtor will perform way better than they would, in my opinion anyway, than if they had not received that training.
Is there a certain personality type that you look for in seeing if someone is suited for real estate? Because we have personality, which is pretty well entrenched,
Yep.
and then you have behavior. You can change a person's behavior and
Yep.
teach them how to do different things and stuff. But is there a certain personality type that would be more conducive to real estate, or is it?
I mean, that's a completely different discussion because there are basically 4 personality profiles.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen all personality profiles perform extremely well in real estate. The key component, in my opinion, is okay. First of all, is the person honest and trustworthy to the nth degree? No matter what, they're looking out for their client's best interests above their own. If they got that, then I'm fine. I'll work with them because the rest I can teach. Now, not everybody's created equal, and I wouldn't, if I was a doctor, I'm sure I wouldn't be near the top because that would be something that I'd be good at. But if you are really good at this business, and when I mean good at it, in that you're always looking out for the client's best interest and you're working really hard for that person, then your success is not guaranteed, but I guarantee it's certainly going to be way better than someone who's considering is, okay, where's my next commission coming? Where's my next commission coming? Right?
Yeah, because I guess when you do it strictly for money,
that's so transparent,
right? But it's also you're great when you're making money. Then you're not so great when you're not making money. But you can always control how you deal with your clients, and
Exactly.
always you've got 100% control over that.
Exactly.
Tom, eye-opening. You've taught me a lot of stuff that I never really realized was so involved in the real estate business, and of course your work as well. I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and talk to me, and hopefully the people who are listening to this will get a much better appreciation of not only real estate business, but what you are able to offer should they want to depend on you to sell or to purchase a house.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much, and I also appreciate the fact that you consider me good enough that you would actually provide an interview on your show. And I do follow Mind, Body, Soul. I don't look at all of it all the time. Some things attract me more than others, but I gotta say it's a highly beneficial show for anyone who wants to participate.
And I that's a good point, and I know that, but I wanted to provide such a broad range of people. Like I had Dennis Berry on. We did a couple of interviews on wills and on the Family Law Act, because there are things out there that people need to know, and we talk about, and my hope in all of this is that people live in hope and possibility, and that they may hear from somebody that could actually change their lives. Again, Tom, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thanks very much, Gary.